Jeff, you guys got to suck it for me, buddy.
That was an aggressive lift like that. Come on, break the record, Jeff. Oh, this is 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds. Go for the record. Oh, my God. It's a new record. Let me have the mic. Can I have the mic?
So blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again.
Well, I'm here. I'm not sure where Corey went. He was supposed to come out here. He's supposed to be here for this big win. The Noles have lost. Oh, it's coming in hot.
I made it.
Team again.
Cheers! Go Noles!
Go Noles!
Hi guys, nice to see y'all. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time since Florida State won a football game, and here we are. It's time to smash it up on a Monday night. This, as you can see on the top of the screen, is the Monday Smash presented by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. His name is Ira Schafel. He is the managing editor of Warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang. Victory Monday Smash. Ira, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. There were a lot of good memories in that clip. I mean, it felt, man, 2023 was fun times. We were we were different people back then.
It seems like for every game clip or practice clip, there were 3 clips of copious amounts of consumption of some kind. And you know what? Maybe we should lead off that way tonight on the Monday Smash presented by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. I don't think Russ would mind. Ira, I think we had discussed if there was a victory, there might be some spoils to go along with the victory. So what is it that you have at your side? I put out before the show started that you were going to get a shooter, a shot glass, and we'll be getting started in a second. Was I lying when I put that in the chat?
You were not lying. You were not lying. But there's some variables at play here. So this is where it all started, right? The Don Julio. Everybody remembers the beautiful high top shelf Don Julio. There are some top shelf Don Julios. This was not one of them. But over the last couple of years, man, people have been so generous and kind and supportive of the show and of Tequila. My interest in Tequila, which is obviously fledgling, and so we've gotten some I don't say donations, gifts. We've gotten some gifts to the show. First, we got this from the guys at Tried and True Consulting.
Yep.
The Calafino Blanco, which is, I don't know if you can see it, if you can really see it on the.
Oh yeah.
Can you see it?
You can see it. You can see it very clearly. My goodness.
We've got this is an option. We've got this is crazy. Chris Scalfo was a good friend of all the shows. Jeff's show, I know.
San Diego Chris, as he's known. His Padres are going to the playoffs just like your Orioles, Ira.
He gave me a bottle of the Avion 44.
Holy crap!
Is I mean, it's doing some things. I'll pull it out if I can figure out how to.
44.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like I don't even want to open it because I'm like I feel like I'm not worthy. It's like, man, when we were in Ireland, they wanted us to play golf, and I'm like, I don't think I need to be on these golf courses. I don't feel like I'm worthy of some of this tequila.
Wow,
we've been given. Smokes. We appreciate everybody, and then our newest addition to the collection from Ingram Smith in the Battle's End, celebrating the big win. And I know you guys got some at the station as well. The Battle's End tequila.
Very nice. Very nice.
Again, I'm still, man, I need a clinic. I need a class. I need somebody to really teach me what to do. But I'm going to have a sip of I'm going to have a little bit of the Battle's End tequila, I think.
You go with the Battle's End. Okay, well, this Garrett's request does not apply here. He says since the win was crappy, do a shot of the crappiest tequila.
I don't have any more, Garrett. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the Julio that's just an empty bottle. It's a memory bottle.
It's just, exactly.
Okay,
that's what's sort of. So I'm going to try to you can introduce while I try to.
I will introduce. Coming up later on tonight's show is Dominic Robinson, lead football analyst for Warchant TV, warchant.com. As Ira sets the stage for the moment that we're all waiting for here, we might need to go full screen, Director Ben, because we need every win brings a smile, everybody. Not necessarily because of the offense, but because of the smash that comes after it. Here it is.
And here's the thing. We're real quick. I know, like with better tequila, you're not really supposed to just shoot it. But this is kind of the gag. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. So don't judge the quality of the Battle's End tequila, which you can get, I'm sure, at thebattlesend.com at their website. And I believe and definitely a portion of it goes to the Battle's End supporting Florida State athletes. So, so if I make a reaction because I'm kind of a wuss and because you're probably not, I don't know if you're supposed to shoot this kind or not. I'm sure it's delicious and I'm sure it's perfect.
Ingram won't be offended. He wants to sling some tequila so that the off season can be happier for everybody involved. So shoot away. Here we go.
To 14-9. Noles in their first big win of the year. All right. All right. All right. We're not squealing.
No. You had to gather there.
It was like it's like DJ running the RPO. I had to kind of make sure I got it. But anyway, delicious. Thank you, Ingram.
I'm turning as red as my shirt. That is tremendous. It was like DJ revving up to run. You know, he breaks the pocket. He's like, I need to take off here. Here we go.
All right.
Oh, man.
I'm sure LT, you didn't take the dive, so I'm gonna see what I can do.
That's right. I know we got 3-on-2 on the perimeter, but we're gonna run here, baby. Let's see about we can pick up 2. All right. I don't know how we can top the first 10 minutes or 8 minutes of this program here tonight, but we're gonna try to do so. So did Ira have to go to corner pocket to get that shot glass? That's a real shot glass. I know we talk about that every time. That is not one of your convenience stores postcard style shot glasses that fits nothing. That thing is for real. And so
that was good. I enjoyed it, Ingram. Thanks, man. That was really good.
Oh, Ingram is in the chat? Is he?
No, I'm just letting him know if he sees this or hears about it.
He happens by the chat often, so you never know. Ira is the DJ of tequila, says Florida man in Alabama. Outstanding. We're going to have some questions that we will answer tonight. I'm sure many of them will be about the quarterback position, and on a more serious note, we can get into that as we go. But again, the layout of tonight's show, Ira and I are going to discuss Florida State being 1-3. Okay. Well, there's a digit that's not a 0 to the left of the dash in the win-loss record. We're going to talk about that for a little bit, and then obviously we'll get into your questions, followed by questions for Dominic Robinson. So if you have schematic questions, if you have what the hell, Dominic, can you explain to me why, ... questions, he'll take his best stab at it when he joins the show in about 25 minutes' time. Ira, just your thoughts about... it was Parents' Weekend, so it looks like the game was very well attended. That was a concern for a lot of people behind the scenes during the week. But it looked like the atmosphere was on point for a game that it was tough to be enthusiastic about for long stretches, but it seemed like a decent atmosphere. And obviously, your view from the press box, what did you notice on Saturday night?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good. I mean, it was a good vibe for the whole crowd. I was concerned mostly because it was the third straight Saturday, and a lot of times those are really tough. And it was not a big name opponent. So, but I think they were smart to have it be Parents' Weekend, and I thought that it worked out pretty well. The game itself, I thought the crowd, as ugly as it was offensively for stretches, I think the fact that Florida State had the lead helped. I think it just helped. It kept people engaged. You think about the Boston College game and the Memphis game, they're down in both of those games, and it just felt when this offense is so bad and you're behind, it feels like the end of the world. So the fact that Florida State was ahead and then they only trailed really for one possession. Once they gave up the lead, they reclaimed it back with their touchdown drive. I think that was big in keeping the fans engaged. I don't know if some of the cheers are kind of Bronx cheerses, sometimes when they cheer for the offense doing something remotely positive. But it's whatever it was, it felt like the fans were in it, and it was cool, man. It's just cool for those guys, and I get it, man. Like I understand the product is not what it needs to be, especially on offense. Well, specifically on offense, but I also feel like, man, you've seen the defense get better, and that's a positive sign. And if they play like they did Saturday, I think there's several of these games in the next 8 that this defense can keep them in games if they play like this. To beat Clemson or Miami or anything like that, the offense is going to have to be completely different. But I feel like the defense can keep them in some of these games.
Maybe it's because they went with the Monday Smash little theme. The coloring, the helmets, the jerseys, Ira, garnet on garnet with the white helmets. Maybe that's what it was. Non-traditional in all ways, it feels like this season is for Florida State. I don't know.
Real quick, I just want to, on that note, this was funny in the game thread on the Tribal Council during the game. Somebody, when we posted that, Florida State's going to go with kind of alternative helmets tonight, one of the first responses was, you have to play better to earn the right to have an alternative uniform. And then somebody else was like, no, you need to play better to have the right to wear the traditional Florida State. I thought that was pretty funny.
I don't know if they cleared that bar to earn the traditional uniforms after this weekend on offense, but you're right. The through line on defense is it's gotten better, largely speaking, week to week, especially up front. And Ira, everybody's talked about it. You guys talked about it on the wrap. We've had a chance to do it on the postgame show and the JCS. But, Josh Farmer, it's not just a one performance season so far for Josh. He's been playing well consistently, but this was a breakout performance. PFF had this thing at 28 quarterback pressures. 28 quarterback pressures. For comparison's sake, Florida State got to 30 in the ACC championship game last year, which is one of the more lauded defensive performances in the history of the program. When you're talking about defensive line dominance, it is up in that echelon, especially they had no offense to work with that night in the ACC championship game. Kind of there's a parallel there too, but 28 pressures, 12 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. That's where the good vibes, the legitimate ones, not the Bronx cheers, not the tongue-in-cheek kind of stuff. Legitimately, that's the reason if you're going to smile, you would do so.
Yeah, and the thing about Josh and Patrick Payton also is, when the first 2 weeks of the season were such a shock of how poorly they played, and people were like, how could you guys say this defensive line was going to be good? And not to defend us, but like Josh and Patrick Payton had played before. You could say that we were wrong going into the first couple of weeks that Marvin Jones would be a big time player. All I've ever talked about Marvin Jones was that athletically, he's exactly what you want. He's 6'5", 250, and can really run. And I think he's got decent bend, even though some people don't think he does. I think he's a pretty good athlete, and he's obviously got the size and speed. And it just wasn't, but you never saw it. So coming into the season for him and Darryl Jackson, you're kind of projecting. We've seen Darryl Jackson in practice for a year. There are moments where it's great. There are moments where it's not great. So you didn't know for sure. But Josh and Patrick Payton, man, those guys have played a lot of football. So it was so weird to see them not really having much of an impact in the first couple of weeks. But then, I thought last week against Memphis, you started to see it. If you had any kind of offense at all in that game, I thought the defense played really well. In that Memphis game, I thought the lack of offense just kind of eventually just wore the defense down. This game, man, getting a lead I think was huge for them, and they were awesome, man. It was good to see, because again, I think Marvin Jones Jr., people are ready to kind of say it's not going to be there with him. He's like 20 years old. He didn't really play a lot of football at Georgia. There's still a lot of football ahead of that kid. So, man, this defensive line could be really legit. Cal's offensive line is not any good, but it's not that bad. Florida State's defensive line made them look terrible.
Yeah, and it's baby steps. Engagement, enthusiasm, things like that are what we were asking and wanting to see from Marvin Jones Jr. In this case, you got it, but now you're like, all right, man, you don't need to continue dancing because there's a 4th down play that's about to run behind you. Or, hey, I know you want to get in the quarterback's face, but the ball is loose and it's on the turf. Go get the ball. But you know what? 2 weeks ago, those are the problems you'd be begging for with Marvin Jones Jr. So there is progress being made. Sometimes you have to stop yourself when you're saying, man, that's what we're saying progress is about. But for real, when you have a guy that takes over a game in the interior, then you have one-on-one matchups on the outside for edge rushers to go get the job done. And Patrick Payton did a great job not only as an edge rusher, but then also he was asked to spy an awful lot. And there was one tackle he made that was a touchdown saving tackle inside the red zone. And then several other plays that he made in space with pursuit, like the type of efforts, Ira, that we were accustomed to seeing out of Patrick Payton last year. He would chase the ball down 30 or 40 yards. If it's going the other direction, he didn't care. He was engaged to the whistle. He did that again on Saturday. Should you hold a parade for that? No, but you should also note that it was not there before, and now it is.
So that was yeah, I'm sorry. That was kind of, just interesting, or I don't know how to phrase it, about the press conferences today, because there were several questions kind of to Adam Fuller, basically along the lines of, praising players for effort. That's the expectation. So it probably shouldn't be praised. But I would say this: when you're losing, and this is what I thought we saw in the Memphis game, and really probably the BC game, everything can start to fall apart when you're losing, and in terms of chemistry, in terms of just emotions, in terms of techniques. I mean, like, once you start losing, everything can kind of fall apart. And so for those guys to kind of find their footing and then come back and start and have a good week of practice. The coaches said that they noticed a difference last week in practice, and then you saw it in the game. Again, you don't get a trophy for trying hard. You're a Division I football player with NIL money, but from where they were, man, you just have to be encouraged about, hey, this is possible. Like they could play like that every week.
Did you feel down the stretch, Ira, because Cal had the ball a couple of times with a chance to take the lead late and break hearts? There's one podcast and show that airs on YouTube here as well, that airs in the mornings for Warchant. People can guess which it is. They might have called you more cynical than Corey has been. And so defend yourself in this situation. Or did you think that Florida State was going to close the deal after all the long conversions down the stretch? Did you think Florida State was going to come away with a win?
I was convinced Cal was going to score on that last drive. I was 100% convinced. Honestly, because it just feels like this team in some ways just can't get out of its own way. Even in the first half, I thought, look, man, everybody's killing the offense, and I get it. 14 points is pretty gross. 7.5 points is pretty gross. What this offense has done for 4 weeks is pretty gross. But I actually felt like for the first time watching that offense in the first half that it was like, okay. I mean, it's not great, but this isn't the worst offense I've ever seen. But then every time they would get down into the 30 or, have a chance, if they could have gone up 2 scores in that game, I really feel like, man, it could have gotten really good, because I think the defense would have continued to do what they were doing. And then the offense would have got some confidence, but they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. And, there's questionable holding call, I guess. You have the turnover. I feel like, and I asked Norvell today about this, I felt like those two of the possessions in the first half towards the end of the second half, where the one that ends with the interception and then the 4th down try, I would have liked him on 3rd down in those situations. It's hindsight, probably. Yeah. But, man, just get a few yards and kick the field goal. Because if you go up 2 scores on that team, the way your defense is playing, I feel like you're in great shape. And you could have had 6 more points if you had done that in those 2 situations. He's still – he believes in his players, and he believes, and even in hindsight, he said those plays were there. Like the interception, he said it was just a bad play. Now, he didn't say if it was DJ or if it was the receiver or both, but he just said it was a bad play. It's hard to coach against a bad play, but I just think, man, from a mindset of what you have on this team, right now, you feel like you've got a pretty spunky defense, you've got great special teams, and a suspect offense. I'm trying to get 3 points if I can get 3 points.
Yeah, okay. So they did this a couple of years ago, Ira, when they were trying to play around Fitzgerald, or the earlier iteration of Fitzgerald, and they did it on the road at NC State. Ends up coming back to bite them. You didn't ever know it in the moment in the first quarter, but I believe it was a first quarter drive.
By the way, real quick, that Battle's End Tequila is so good. I'm gonna sip some.
Oh, I thought you were about to shoot another one.
No, I'm just gonna sip some. I'm gonna do it.
You here for Dominic? I was like, do you need?
Sip some.
So you can recall as you're sipping fondly on some Battle's End Tequila, that the way they called a 3rd down and a 4th down early in that game, they knew that they were going to go for it. It was a medium range field goal, but they had no faith in their kicker at that point, and they called, I think it was a slant to Johnny on 4th down. It didn't end up working out. But in that situation, Mike had adjusted because he had been presented enough evidence leading up to that moment that if I'm here on this part of the field, I got to go for it. I would think, Ira, DJU's career has said he doesn't throw an interception in that situation.
Yeah.
But after that moment, I would imagine that it's a draw or a screen or an outright, straight run in third and obvious if they're in that part of the field again. Because you could even have taken a sack there and you're going to kick and you're going to get 3 points.
The one with the interception.
The one with the interception. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think you take the ball out of his hands now. If that's in you, my man, look, points are at a premium. I'd like to start averaging 16 or more. Right now we're averaging around 15 a game. So let's get that number up to 16 or 17. And the way to do that is if I need to call a run to Toafili in that moment, he's got a better chance of achieving 16 yards than I believe you do by throwing the rock. And sometimes a sack is something you can't do. But in that situation, I even said it out loud, and I felt like I ruined it. I'm sorry, everybody. I just put it in the air. I said, well, the only thing you can't do here is throw an interception. So anything but that, and we're fine. And I'm sitting alone, and it's my fault, everybody. That's what you're going to probably see here in the future. There were some later circumstances. The last drive, Florida State had the ball before they were kneeling down, or they were in a 3rd and long. I'm like, man, just hand it off. Yeah. Put the ball in Alex Mastromano's hands so he can drop it to his foot and then see if you can play defense. But they did rear back and try and throw there too. If it's DJ moving forward and you're in that moment, you might have to call it away from him, which is another reason why I think people are clamoring for, do you make a change?
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. Like, if you were in that situation with Brock, would you feel any differently, or would you still want him to just run it and let Mastromano play field position? I mean, again, the reality is that the fan base the last time they saw Brock Glenn was against Georgia in the Orange Bowl and in Louisville in the ACC championship game. I 100% believe it would be a lot better than that. Certainly, it would be better than the ACC championship game, because I thought the Orange Bowl, I thought he looked better and more in command. I mean, I think he could play decent. But as I said, talking to Jeff today on Jeff's show, I know everybody's ready to move on, and I get it. But I don't want anybody to think that that's going to solve a lot of problems. I mean, the reality is, listen, man, look at what they have out there at receiver. I mean, it's just not, even when Ja'Kai is as good as it gets, and we love Ja'Kai, and thank goodness he's on this team. But if you were holding a draft for wide receivers in the ACC, I don't know how quickly Ja'Kai would get taken. So I love the young skill players. I mean, I love some of those young skill players. Mekhi Danzy and Luane McCoy and just across Amari Williams. I mean, across the board, Elijah Moore. But a lot of these guys aren't ready. They clearly aren't ready to play. Alex Atkins today said that it's getting closer. He thinks it's going to come where they can get those guys in the field. And at that point, I feel like you've got some guys that can make some plays. But right now, I don't know if it would make it. I guess what would you right now? You think this offense? So they're a 15 points a game offense with Brock Glenn. What do you think they are?
Maybe 17, maybe 20 at most. I don't know. I don't think there's market improvement there either. I think it would be unfair to expect that of him. Like, the thing where I am, and it's all about where you stand in terms of what do you want to achieve this year.
Right.
Like,
that's a good point.
We talked about it today on the show, on the JCS at length. Like, when KJ Kirkland makes a mistake, or Quindarius or Edwin Joseph or Jabril Rawls, or, if those guys, or Blake Nicholson, these young players make mistakes. When they do, you might be better for it next year. You might be better for it at the end of this year.
Blake Nicholson, all those guys, just
right.
Fire.
But if it's guys that have been here for 5 years and are not going to be here next season, how do you get better for that? And so, the line that I think Jeff agrees with me here, but the line that I would draw is, I don't think it translates to a fix-all. This isn't like waving a magic wand. Maybe it is, but I don't think it is. But at least you'll have a better sense of what you have moving forward. And then also maybe the kid develops into something sooner. Because right now I know what I have, which is 15 points a game. And like, damn, I don't know how many opponents you're going to be able to hold to 9, 10, 13, 14 points.
Not many.
Not many. No. And this defense plays well enough that, I mean, look at the point outputs. What's the highest so far this season? 24 that they've allowed?
Yeah.
In 4 games. So that's what's also really frustrating, because you feel like if you could just have a college average offense, you'd be 3-1 or 4-0. But I think
in the Memphis game, you gifted them 6 points.
Right. Oh yeah, you did. Absolutely. Yeah. 2 short fields. Absolutely. The thing I would say is maybe some fans think it'll fix everything. And I don't know if that's fair to expect. So that would be my message to that segment of the fan base. My thought is, does it matter? Because, I mean, what do you have before you? And I think what
Right.
Mike could be saying one of two things. We still have goals and we still have to play until there are no goals left. Or Ira, to your point, he's saying, well, I can't trust the other 10 to execute their job. So why would I ruin my quarterback of the future, one of my potential quarterbacks of the future, by throwing him into a dysfunctional situation? You know, that's no way to grow and develop.
The great thing for Mike Norvell, and I don't know if he's seeing it this way or not, but the reality is, after you just signed a $8 year, $10 million contract, whatever, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, whatever it was, $10 million a year, he's got some job security where he can focus on this year, because and give this chance give this team, this particular team, which is not mathematically eliminated from winning the ACC yet, to give this team every possible chance to do what they can do. And then, and take the bullets along the way. And then once it's over, once if you don't beat SMU and you're staring at Clemson, or you don't beat SMU and you lose to Clemson, then maybe at that point you say, look, DJ, I appreciate it. And to some of these other guys, some of these other older players, hey man, you keep practicing. We're going to give you opportunities. If you want to play on Saturdays, keep working. That's going to help you with your NFL prospects. But we need to get these other guys on the field because this season isn't going to be what we thought. I could see it. I think I have to assume that that's part of why he hasn't done it yet, because he doesn't think those changes are going to help them win a bunch of games. And he doesn't want to give up on these guys yet because they're not mathematically out of it. That's kind of my theory.
Well, you have to climb into the 6 inches between his ears and figure it out, because there's not a whole lot of ways you can come to the conclusion. He is like, Knott says, so we don't try out any other quarterbacks because you're scared they're going to get hurt. Then who do we have next year? Like, I agree. I'm trying to make the argument that Mike would make in that situation, because it's clear that the path that he's taking, Ira, he didn't. The funny thing is, he's not, when he's asked the question, he's not like all in definitive saying, well, DJ's our guy. Like, why are you even asking me this question? Which I think would help. If you're going to roll with him, just say so.
Would it help though? I mean, because then people would be like, "Is this guy drunk?"
Well,
but I think
it would, at least for the locker room. I think it would, because like I was talking about today, like if you're Brock and your family's talking to you, you're going to class, you're on campus, you're whatever. Like, it would be easier if you had an answer that you could refer to coach for and just say, like, well, I mean, this is what he says, rather than like, I don't know, maybe he'll play me. I just taking a little bit more of a definitive stance might help at least the locker room. If the fan base won't like the response, they already did. We posted it on our social platforms today, his response, but at least it feels like there's publicly waffling. So people have hope, Ira, before every game day, saying, is today the day? And then it just doesn't work that way.
I wonder what would happen if they had fallen behind in that game. I think the best thing that could have happened to DJ was they did have that touchdown drive. The offense did look good. And then honestly, and again, I think people probably don't want to hear it, but the offense looked pretty good, I thought, for the most of the first half. They just, once they got into they were at the 15 and turned it over, or the 18 and turned it over. They were to the 30 a couple times. Like, they were moving the football. They just self-destructed. And the one thing this offense, with DJ at quarterback, the one thing this offense can't really do, I say they can't do, they did it on the touchdown drive. I think they converted a third and forever, the Chikai play. But in general, this offense, once they get off schedule, they're screwed. DJ's not going to make plays, and the receivers aren't going to make plays to get them to make up second and long, third and long. But man, even in that game, wasn't it kind of disheartening that Cal's skill guys looked a whole lot more dynamic at receiver and tight end?
The thing is, and Robbie wants to apologize real quick. He says, hey, I was the guy in the background with the loud blower in the post-game show. Sorry, after Cal. Sorry for rattling you, Corey. So Robbie was the man making the noise. Apology accepted on Corey's behalf, Robbie.
No problem, Robbie. Listen, man, it doesn't take much to get him off his game. Nobody could hear that mower except for Corey, and he felt like the need to bring it up.
Yeah, I would say it's hard to know how good the weapons are in some circumstances, Ira, because like they
don't have anybody making those catches. I mean, people are mad at the defense for giving up some long, second and long, third and long plays, but I mean, good grief, man, they made some catches.
There are some passes that were completed, like early on to Hakeem. There was one on an RPO. There's another RPO to Kentron. One to the left, one to the right. and they clearly gained a lot of separation on Cal's vaunted secondary. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah, you're right.
a lot of the throws were not. A lot of these throws were throwaways. They're out of bounds or they're off target. Like it all works part and parcel. I'm not trying to argue
fair.
for one. I'm not trying to argue for 1 second that Florida State has weapons on the level of anything close to last year. I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm not sure. I would sure love to see the ball down the field a little bit more, so we could say they've been given 12 chances and they come away with 1 catch, and that's where also some of the offensive stuff are. Being play calling critic guy is not. You don't make a living doing that, but you can see consistently defenses not honor or respect downfield shots when there's a quick flare to Malik Benson that they'd faked 8 times, ran the 9th, and they were still ready for it, and there's a 5-yard loss. There's a tackle on the backfield on the 9th.
I felt the good thing about that was that Malik got a good workout in.
Yeah, he really did.
He must have run 200 yards on jet sweep fakes that never materialized.
It's like what they do in soccer, when they have the substitution and they keep the track. He ran 4 miles today. Like, yeah, I'm sure Malik is thrilled with all the running he had to do. That would be like somebody who I'm not going to say he's a knockdown 3-point shooter, but a guy who's not a bad shooter, and he's just there's screen actions for him all day, and he's running around, and here he comes, and for whatever reason, the point guard hates his guts.
Never comes to him.
He never gets a shot. Z-Chan, thank you very much for the contribution. Unpopular take. The offense made good strides Saturday. I think brighter days are ahead. I mean, not 9-3 days, but maybe 6-6. And we can talk about that for a minute, Ira. I mean, I was buoyed by that they ran the ball schematically differently on Saturday. There was a little bit more straight ahead. They ran a lot of counter in the middle of the game, but in the beginning they really didn't, and they had success. The offensive line was driving people back.
Let me ask you this, and I want to ask Dominic this, but so some of the times when they ran counter, and sometimes it worked because I don't think Cal's defensive front is that great, but they like Darius sometimes when Darius would pull with the guard, like he can't go because the guard's so slow. Yeah. And he's like tripping over the guard, and it's just like, I don't know, man. It looks like a cluster. Even when it works, it looks like a cluster.
And there's so much less physicality. Like it's almost like they're accepting blocks rather than driving dudes. Like Ira, to your point, you could play a tuba in the background, and you're like, they're never getting there. And Toafili is like having to dance and wait and wait and wait.
And I don't think it's Darius. I think Darius is go. He's ready to go. Yeah. But it's just we thought those guards because last year, it felt like the guards were a problem, and it still seems like the guards are a problem when they try to run that. Yeah, but moving guys straight ahead, I thought you saw some physicality.
You did. They actually ran a lot of things that Cal runs. I was like, what is this? Is this like a tribute drive? Because it was working, and it continued to even I thought in the second half too. So that was the stride that I thought was good. And you're right, Ira. Before, I think there's kind of a line of delineation. The TJ Ferguson penalty, the holding penalty inside the 10-yard line. Like before that point, they were on pace to have 400 and some yards of offense for the day. But the problem is when it goes bad, you have to be able to the next drive or the next drive after that kind of flush it. And it seemed like once the interception happened from that point moving forward, there might have been a drive or two, but it didn't have the same crispness that it did at the start of the game. Now, I think you brought it up today on the show. Can they fix everything immediately 1 week to the next? No. I thought there was a pulse. There was a little bit of an offensive pulse this week, but it's still 14 points. I mean, my God, you've got to find a way to get into the mid-20s at least.
Yeah, that's brutal. I'm not sure who made the last comment that Ben put up on the board, but he corrected us. It's dangerous. Said it's not third and long, it's third and lang, which it should be. I feel like I need to now when I'm just having conversations with people, just drop third and lang instead of third and long because you've I think have you trademarked that? Like Pat Riley?
You actually were the one that came up with it, so I appreciate that. Thanks, Dad. Must be my dad's burner. That's very much my dad's style to use money signs with a comment. So I appreciate that.
I guess big picture, man. That's where I'm at with this team. No, I guess it's almost like we need everybody to like establish what their terms are right now with this team. Yep. After those first 2 losses, are you like, okay, screw this season. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on 2025. or are you, what can we get out of 2024? And if that's your goal, I don't know how mad you could be about that game, because the defense played really, really well, especially the defensive front. Even the big plays, the passing game came up, and some of the long conversions that they got, I felt like they were more just great plays by Cal. Man, the quarterback made some really big time throws. The receivers and tight ends made some great catches. I didn't feel like it was just given to them the way sometimes it felt in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then offensively, you saw strides, as Echan said. Like, you did see strides. Was it what it needs to be? No, but you saw strides. So if you're focused on 2024, I don't know how you can be pissed off about that game. I think the people that are pissed off, I would assume, are more, hey man, I don't want to watch DJ and get more. I want to getting on to 2025.
That's where I am. And that's my, and so if that means you lose how many more can you lose? But if you lose a game or two more than you were supposed to with veterans, like, that's a price well paid and well earned, because it's about the long haul for me. But I can understand if you're saying, look, the hell with that. I want to maximize what we do in the short term, because the best way, because Ira, you could argue it this way. The best way to keep that culture or core for the next year engaged is through success and sprinkling them in, rather than turning it over to them, having them fail. And then again, it's not like people are locked in anymore in college football year over year. So do you want to see it all, go the other way? And then they're looking at their options because they don't think they can win here. So it is a fine balance here that Mike has to walk. I think it's finer than people make it out to be.
Right.
But at the same time, I would still make the change. Dominic Robinson running just a little bit behind here, so we're going to take a couple more questions. Actually, take a couple questions to start. Brad King, real question is, since the D-line and Shaheem Brown are juniors, with the way it started, what are the chances of their return for better tape?
Man, that's a great point. I honestly was thinking about that over the weekend, that, I'm sure Marvin Jones came here thinking he was going to have one big year and go. I mean, he's super talented. I mean, people, until this weekend, probably people would have laughed at us for saying that, but he is a super talented kid. He had 2 sacks, could have had probably 4 in that game. And, there just aren't a lot of people that look like him. And so I feel like that was kind of one of the things I felt after the first few weeks is, well, at least maybe these guys are going to come back. Patrick Payton's another one, man. He's got good tape from last year, but he's got to continue to play the way he did in that game. If he plays the way he did in that game the rest of the season, yeah, he's going to go and he'll make some money. But if he played like he did in the first couple weeks, he might have to come back next year.
Right.
So that is to some degree a positive. Shaheem, I don't know. I mean, I would assume all of these guys. One thing you know about the NFL draft, as much as it is about individual evaluations, they want players on good teams. I mean, it's not a fluke that Florida State, had so much success last year. And you had 10 guys drafted. Part of that is because of the success the team had, but part of it is those guys got seen more. If you're on a bad football team, it's hard to justify spending a lot of time on bringing you in for a visit, investing a lot of time, because you just haven't done anything. There's not really good film. So I do think that could be a positive, but there's still enough of the season that, if those guys play like they did on Saturday, they still may be able to go.
In the meantime, if you want to buy some tequila or some bricks at Campbell Stadium so those choices become more difficult, that's the way to do it. Carol asks on Facebook, we won, but I don't think DJ is the answer. So if we're losing at halftime, will there be a change of quarterback finally? I do want to circle back to that because you brought this up briefly. Thank goodness for the 2 saving graces, Fitzgerald and the defense. However, don't you think the defense will give up eventually if the offense stalls out? Go Noles.
Mastromono was huge in that game.
Mastro was unbelievable, as usual. That's why, even in that third and long situation, Ira, with 5 minutes to go in the game, man, I might even take a knee. Take a knee. You're not. The only thing that can happen there is bad. It's a sack. Right. It's a turnover. Just keep the clock moving. Take the 40 seconds off, and then let Mastro be the guy. But the first part of Carol's question, if we're losing at halftime, will there be a change of quarterback? I really feel like, Ira, and the NFL, this is a lot easier. You can feel when a quarterback is about to get yanked, when the other guy's going to start warming up. He finally makes that mistake. Or the guy's warming up and then there's an interception. You're like, well, that's his last drive. God love him, but that happened to Jameis a lot down the stretch in Tampa. You're like, oh, geez, there it is. I mean, Bruce has to go to Fitzgerald now. Or Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzpatrick now. I felt like there were a couple of moments on third down where if DJ didn't pull a rabbit out, there might have been a change. One of those was in the first half. He missed a couple of reads, and then he hits Jalen Brown on a slant. They end up punting on that drive, but I felt like it was close to being that moment. And outside of the interception, DJ on third down kind of saved DJ's time as a starter here at Florida State. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that is fair. And I think that the way the game played out, I thought merited not making a change. If you had gotten down, say the first drive had happened a couple more times, if you had 2 or 3 and outs and the offense is going nowhere and Cal maybe scores on one of their drives, and now all of a sudden you're looking at 7-0, 10-0, I think it's very easy at that point to make a change. And I would have been surprised if Mike Norvell didn't. So that's where I would tell people, I agree with Carol. I think that the way that game played out didn't make sense probably to make a change, but I don't think that's off the table. And if they do get behind at SMU, it might make sense to give Brock a chance. And again, I'm not expecting Brock to turn the offense around, but I do think one thing about him, I was talking to somebody, and if they watch this, shout out to them. I was talking to somebody the other night. I was at Walk-Ons Friday night and I ran into a longtime high school football and track coach in the state. And we were just talking. And one of the things he said about Brock was he felt like the team rallied around him last year at the ACC championship game from the standpoint of, we've got to help this guy out because we know he's one of us and he's going to lay it on the line. Like
Yep.
Brock, whether or not Brock turns out to be a great quarterback in college football or not, we'll see. But he is all heart. He is going to lay it on the line. He's going to put his body on the line. And that when a quarterback does that, a lot of times the rest of the team will do that as well. The rest of the offense will do that. That was one of the things that Jimbo loved about Christian Ponder. He used to always talk about if your quarterback's tough, that's going to make everybody else tough. That is to me, the number one reason you'd play Brock Glenn is because you maybe would get everybody else to rally around him and try to help him because he's putting his body on the line. He's one of them. And so I think you would see that if Brock played. And if you got behind, I think that would make sense to go to him. I just felt like the way that game played out Saturday, it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the spark. That when people say spark, that's it. You can tell when guys respond and they play harder for somebody else. And we see it at other markets all the time. It's just that, will it happen? I think if Mike knew for a fact that was the case, I think he would have made the move by now. Now, this is like Irish binocular skills or rewatch of the games. Jeremy, what's up, Jeremy? Says, is it me or does Norvell's demeanor seem to be off? He doesn't really seem to have the energy he normally has after a win. So take that any which way you like. During the game, post-game, what do you think about Norvell's demeanor?
Yeah, I do try to watch with binoculars. And I would say, and people have caught a lot of the TV footage of Norvell too. I think it's a sign of everything going wrong. I don't think it's a sign of Mike Norvell not being connected or Mike Norvell being detached or anything else that people have theorized. I just think it's when you realize that this team is not what you thought it was going to be, and guys who you thought were going to play a certain way are not playing that way, that's got to be alarming. And he knows it's all on him. Look, man, the head coach, people can complain about, we've seen over the last 2 weeks, we've seen people go after Derek Ray, the personnel guy. We've seen people go after, the support staff. This guy didn't recruit his position well enough. At the end of the day, Mike Norvell makes it very clear to his staff and to us in the media and to the public, this is his football team. So when they look like crap, which they did in the first 3 games, he owns that. And so I think in his mind, man, he's just thinking of all the misevaluations that happened, all the mistakes he made and what he evaluated this team. And I think that's where he is in those moments. I don't think he's lost something or he's a different guy. I just think we're seeing him in a situation he did not expect at all. That's my theory.
Yeah, and you're right, Ira. A lot of people look for the moment. People will look back on this moment and say that this is when it got bad. I don't know. The only thing I can tell you is the moment that Florida State got left out of the playoff was the moment the Orange Bowl was doomed. All right, there you go. There's your definitive statement. Other than that, football is the ultimate team game, and I think behind the scenes too, it is the ultimate team game amongst the coaching staff, amongst the support staff. It's like pulling on a thread. It just, the things are connected, man. I don't think.
Yeah, I think he doesn't. And honestly, in the first couple of games, I think he didn't recognize this team. And he admitted it. He didn't admit it at the time, but he admitted it Saturday night that the team didn't respond well to the loss to Georgia Tech.
That's right.
He did say that Saturday night, and and we didn't make a big deal about it because they just won a game. But he admitted that the response was not what it should have been after the loss to Georgia Tech. I threw that out there last week. I wondered if Georgia Tech beat them twice, and I feel like they did. Then Memphis happened, and you're like, well, shoot, man, maybe these guys just can't play football. But I think there's just so much going on in terms of the psychology of a football team, and I think that they kind of were having a hard time coming out of that, plus the offense issues. I just think he's a lot of things he expected to see from this team he's not seeing, and I think that's why you see him look the way he does.
Well, and he used a word that we use often in the media, but he used it in a couple of press conferences over the first few weeks of the season. He used the word disconnect. Like, he said it. Like, I don't, whatever the disconnect is, I'm like, man, okay, because that's a powerful word. It is about expectations. I'm not in tune with expectations, or something is not in tune with something else. And that's a big admission. Now, maybe they've got a better pulse on things. Do you have a pulse? This is not a fear-mongering thing. This is a legitimate question. Do you have a pulse on insurance needs, that things you might need covered as there's a storm in the Gulf right now, or perhaps insurance needs for anything else? Our pal Russ Voorhis covers the entire state of Florida, the entire state of Alabama, the entire state of Georgia. We know that model runs are happening like every few hours, and there's updates on tracks and where things are going, where they're not going. You know what, folks? You might need to check and make sure that you have all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed for whatever it is, your property, your home, if you have a rental, whatever it is. You can consult with Russ Voorhis, State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. Head to russvoorhis.com to spell it out for those of you on the podcast feed listening later. RussVorhis.com is how you spell russvoorhis.com. Ira, he's a huge Nole. We talk about that all the time. But in situations like this, in insurance, usually when you advertise for it, you're trying to put it in people's brains so that when they need something, they know who to call. And in this case, just, a week like this, make sure you have all those things, where they need to be. You can call Russ for a consultation at any point.
Yeah, I don't know, with medical conditions, you have to say whether or not you have a pre-existing condition. If there's a hurricane in the Gulf, is that a pre-existing condition when you're trying to improve your coverage? But no, Russ does a great job, and we can't recommend him highly enough. Good guy, great staff, and and again, the thing about just from personal experience, the times when because man, when I was younger, I'll be honest with you, man, I just looked for whoever had the cheapest rates on any insurance, whether car insurance or any other insurance. Who's got the cheapest rates? Because I got to meet this deductible, or I've got to meet the qualifications. But when you actually have good insurance and a good person behind you that's going to support you in those times, it's invaluable. So we could really highly recommend Russ and his staff. Like you said, he's a Nole. If you do inquire, if you go to their website or call the phone numbers, if you mention the Monday Smash and that you're a Florida State fan, or don't even mention us, just mention that you're Noles and he's a Nole, he will definitely he likes to hear that, and their staff will do a great job.
We see Dominic Robinson in the green room right now. We're going to go to him in just a minute. But before we go to that quick break for transition, Robert came in with a contribution. Thank you, Robert. Any rumor mill rumblings about shuffling the approach to roster construction high school versus NIL dollars? I'm assuming he means portal dollars, et cetera. And does revenue sharing change any of this? Ira, my first inkling is too early to tell. But what do you think?
Yeah, and thanks, Robert. It's a great question. From a big picture standpoint, the revenue sharing is going to be a big factor in all this, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. People probably have heard talk about the House settlement with the NCAA. The way that's going to work is basically the TV money, a percentage of it, like 22% or so, is going to go to the student athletes, and that's across the board. And so, that may be $20 to $25 million per school, depending on the school, and that money's going to go to the athletes. The schools will decide which athletes get how much and all of that. But the idea is that when that happens, you're not going to have schools also offering just free money not associated with marketing deals. And it's, if a player, once that goes into effect, and it hasn't been enacted yet, but if it does, players can sign NIL deals with companies, but you're not going to see a collective just give a player $8 million or something like that on top of what they can get through the deal. So it will have an effect. As far as Florida State's decisions, man, I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to go a little bit more high school heavy. But I also don't think that their approach is going to be to give big NIL deals to high school players that haven't done anything when you've got players that have done a lot on the college level. So I don't know, man. I don't think they're going to be a dramatic change. But I do think obviously high school recruiting has to get better. and that'll be a priority.
If there are any position coaching changes, maybe that telegraphs a little bit more what their approach might be in the NIL front. But thank you, Robert. We appreciate that. In just about 20 seconds from now, that means I got to get done in about 5. Dominic Robinson, lead football analyst for Warchant.com, joins the Smash. Thanks to everybody tonight, and I will talk to you next week. Ira and D-Rob right after this.
Contact Russ Boris for an auto quote today.
D-Rob in the house. How's it going, man?
Great, man. Happy to be here, man. Back on the Smash. And we found a way to get a dub.
They did find a way to get a dub.
Yes,
first of all, congratulations to Deuce, man. He's getting it done at USC. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a really fun. That was my first time at the Big House. One of the few stadiums that I actually hadn't been there, and then Death Valley, LSU Death Valley are the two kind of places that I haven't had a chance to go to yet that I was excited about. And the Big House did not disappoint, man. It was incredible. It was loud. 110,000 is what they announced. It's just a phenomenal game. Just so many things. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, we were at the press box at Doak watching that game a little bit on our phones and our iPads and keeping track on that. But I'm sure you were watching the Noles as well. I mean, you described it perfectly. I mean, I feel like, and again, there were 0-3, so there's no way to like sugarcoat what this season has been, but they did find a way to get a win. I mean, that to me, that win was, I don't know, man. I feel like that was a good foundation for what this team can try to do in terms of you played really good defense, you played really good special teams, and your offense did just enough. How did you take away, like when you watched that game?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is I think, especially when you come off of 13 wins and a perfect season, you think of the trajectory of the team, and so you assume that winning football games is a lot easier than it is.
Right.
And you just assume, okay, we're in that trajectory all the time. But this isn't the case. And especially now in today's college football, every year resets anew, and you have to find a way to find appreciations for whatever positives your team does come out with, and not just assume that what they all used to have is something that they'll always have. Whether that's 400 yards of offense, or throwing the ball 50 times, or whatever it is. And so for me, it's obviously nobody likes watching a 14-point offense other than the defensive guys. So I'm not saying that you settle or anything like that, but you never ever ever you never turn your nose up at a win. You just that I've learned, especially with the downturn that we had to experience during those rough days. I've learned to appreciate, these games and these wins. I mean, when you're losing to Jacksonville State at home, it will make you appreciate any win anywhere, because if you can lose to Jacksonville State at home, you can lose to anybody, and so so just appreciating that win. And guys obviously still have to play better, and you're going to need a lot more than what you had in that game, but you had enough in that game to win that game. Then you celebrate that win. You don't apologize. You never. I said it to my guys who we won a 54-51 game this Thursday. And I said to my guys, and I coach defense, and I said to my guys, you never apologize for being on the winning side, because it's just not easy to win football games. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and although it's not ideal, sometimes it doesn't look pretty, but when you win, you win. That means you did just enough, and that's the goal, is to do enough.
Yeah, I was curious your perspective on because one of the things that really stood out about that game. We'll answer some of the chat questions here in a second. I felt like the way Josh Farmer played in that game, particularly, but also Patrick Payton and also Daryl Jackson at times, even though he didn't have the stats. I mean, there were plays where he's just moving his offensive lineman 5 yards into the backfield, like the physicality, the quickness, the aggression, the playmaking ability from that defensive front. Maybe it's pie in the sky, but like, would that help the other guys on the team when they see that film, in terms of just being inspired by? Because they were Cal's offensive line. I don't think is great. I'm not trying to sell it as this was a huge achievement, but man, they kicked their ass for a full 4 quarters. What can that do for everybody else that's watching that film?
Yeah, 100%. It is, and I've said it during the breakdowns, or Tom and I have had conversations about how contagious things like that are. Knock 'em backs. Right. What Mickey used to call knock 'em backs, guys who make plays on the ball. Things like that, they absolutely are contagious, and they do mean something. And it especially means something when it's one of your leaders, like in the form of Patrick Payton. When he makes a play, it has more value for other players than when someone else could make the same exact play. It actually will lift other players around you. And that was sort of the foundation behind the video that I did this past week. The breakdown that I did this past week was, it's not just, winning a one-on-one battle always has great value, but when your guys don't win those one-on-one battles, it can be so detrimental. Because if I'm the backup, or maybe not even a backup, but if I'm the safety opposite you, and I look at you as a better safety than me, and you don't make the play,
right? What
type of confidence am I going to have that I can make the play, that I could be the guy? And so, yeah, those things are incredibly important, and they really get your player. If you're on defense and you've got 20 guys that play, or 24 guys that play, when your number 1, 2, and 3 guys are handling their one-on-ones, you're more likely to get a guy, your guy 13, 14, 15, to make plays and to at least feel the confidence to carry out his assignment the way that it's asked to be done. So yeah, those things deserve more value than we probably give it. Even when it is a great play just for the player. Yeah, it's great for the player, but what does it do for your teammates? And that's a thing. That's a real thing.
Then one of the things that Alex Atkins talked about a lot, and I'll get to Brett's question here in 1 second. One of the things Alex Atkins mentioned a lot today in the press conferences was that, and this was the first time we've got to talk to Coach Atkins, because he obviously has been suspended. So this was the first game he was actually able to be on the sideline. Yeah. But he, one of the things he pointed out, and I thought it was pretty valid, but I want to hear your perspective. I'm sure some people will dismiss it. He said that there's so many guys on this team that I wonder if they didn't really value this before the season, but there's so many guys on this team that played in the past for Florida State or played on their other teams, but very few of them were actually like the lead guys. Like very few of them were the big dogs. And so he felt like, some of these receivers maybe have been complementary pieces. And if they didn't make a play, it ain't the end of the world. Keon will make that play next down, or Jaheim will make that play next down. Or on defensively, I didn't make that tackle, but, next time Verse is going to get a sack, or Renardo's going to make that play. Whereas this team has so many guys who are now, for the first time, they have to be the guy. He feels like they didn't handle that well. And they're growing into that. Does you buy that at all?
Yeah, man, I absolutely. I've said this many times before. It's like football is really like world's greatest chemistry experiment. And so what happens is when those guys are in different roles, they're still the same person. They're still the same human, but the chemistry is way different when it's Jordan Travis or, Jaheim Bell or whoever Trey Benson, Trey Benson. The chemistry of that entity will take on a whole different life. And that's why, especially now with all the transfer stuff, it's so important that every year you sort of scrub your mind on what you think a team is or isn't. And like early season rankings, they've never been, I've always felt like they're ridiculous. And now it's like, dude, you're an absolute clown if you ever think that anybody who's ranking anything, and I'm talking about even the really, really smart people, like say Saban, who's in the media right now.
Right.
I bet you Saban could tell you, listen, I don't know crap. I know nothing in relation to, most of these teams, and even the teams that he played against last year. He couldn't give you a really true rundown of like Tennessee, for instance. Where should they be ranked in relation to the other teams? So because of, again, and that's just because of the chemistry and kind of how it will play out. You never know. And that's why I'm always very, very vigilant with falling in love with what a team does early and things like that, because again, you never know even when a guy has some, you expect a guy to have some success and then he has some success. He doesn't know what that looks like week 7 when he's chipped here, right, when he's showing up on game day, college game day on Saturday morning and hits his face and he's getting, now they're getting calls to make money and do ads and post things on Instagram. And you never know what a guy's going to look like, play like once all those things happen. So, I'm always very tepid with my response to early season success because the chemistry is still being formed. It's not solidified yet. And so, yeah, those things that's a really real thing to kind of keep your eyes on. And when guys are in that new role, even if they'd been very, very good players in the past, they might not be able to handle the things that come with being in that new role. Or they might not, and maybe they can handle it, but maybe they don't handle it well. Maybe it doesn't allow them to play as freely as they did in the past, like you said, because they know, hey, I can mess up, which I think is an important part of being an athlete, is knowing you can fail. It's okay. It's going to be okay, and so a lot of times guys don't feel comfortable with that. They get into that role. They no longer have that grace for themselves that they can fail, that they're allowed to fail because now I'm the guy. Right. Everyone wants me to make the play and I got to make the play. And you can't play any sport like that where it's like, I have to do this no matter what. I cannot fail because the truth is you will fail because the other guys are really good too. And they got real good coaches too. And you're a human being that makes mistakes, so you got to have some grace with yourself
to come back and make the next play.
Exactly.
So what was Brett's question? Let me get this question for D-Rob from Brett Taylor. How do we think Florida State's going to, how are teams going to adjust, not just Florida State, adjust to 105 scholarships? Who's going to get the extra 20 scholarships next year? So to kind of clarify, so with the way it's always worked for decades, you had 85 scholarships on football, right, and then you could have a bunch of walk-ons, 25, 30 walk-ons on top of that. Now they're going to switch it to where you can have 105 scholarships, but that's it. Like they're going to put a cap on football teams at 105. So how do you, Dominic, you're a great person to answer this because you're in tune with a lot of college programs. Do you think it's just going to be rewarding the walk-ons, or do you think like Alabama is going to add 20 more studs and everybody else is going to be in trouble? Like, how do you think it's going to play out? If that happens, it's still tentative. The House settlement hasn't been approved yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I think it's going to take a while for it to take on its like solidified form. I think it's going to be very fluid. I think people are going to try different things, and somebody's going to come up with sort of the standard of how to handle it. I think in the beginning, guys are going to try to probably hoard players, and
but that's hard though because nobody wants to sit. I mean,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. In theory, that sounds good, but it's just in today's day and age, nobody sits and nobody redshirts. So I don't think that'll work. So yeah, to be honest, I don't have, there is no like, true like answer that is, I just think it's going to be a little wild and unpredictable in the beginning, because I think everyone's going to take on their own interpretation of that and try to apply it. And more than anything, I think I like this rule. I like the potential for this, but I don't know that it's I don't know that it's solving like a huge problem that we have.
I think it's really it's just one piece of that overall settlement.
Right.
And I think like you're right, man. What happens in sports, just like in business, is there'll be a lot of copycats. Like once somebody like Mike Norvell was really good in the transfer portal, now a lot of people are really good in the transfer portal.
Mhm.
Whatever seems to work the best, I'm sure everybody will copy it.
Yeah.
BF Noles, thanks for your contribution. Ira, do you really believe Tennessee's and Georgia's of the world are going to stop giving money above and beyond the money players are going to get from the school? So that was a comment I made also about the House settlement. Thanks for BF Knowles for the question. So my understanding is if they do make the change and the House settlement gets approved, so they'll have that pot of money, say it's $20 to $25 million that a school can give to the players for NIL in terms of like revenue sharing. And so the way it's supposed to work is if players beyond that can go make money on, sign a deal with Nike or Joe's Rib Shack or whatever it is, then they can do that as long as it's verified. What it's supposed to put an end to is schools, collectives just saying, hey, man, if you come here, you're going to get $1 million or you're going to get $1.2 million. Do I believe it's going to be enforced? What they're saying is, as part of this legislation, as part of what they're doing, there's going to be like an enforcement agency. What they're talking about is like a third party, not the NCAA, but like an agency that's hired only to really enforce that stuff and really investigate it and go after it. If they're not successful at that, then yeah, it's not going to matter. But that is the idea, is that it'll almost be like a salary cap, and then this agency will investigate it. But I mean, D-Rob, better than I do and anybody. I mean, as long as there's rules, there's going to be people looking to break rules.
Mm-hmm.
So to say it's going to be solved, no, but maybe it'll be less Wild West than what it is today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what you just said, the comment you just made, like encapsulates it perfect, which is, I think the question was, do you think it will stop them from breaking the rules? No, it will absolutely not. The people who have been cheating are very good at cheating, and they will continue to cheat because they're very good at cheating. And some of them even got caught, and they got their slap on the wrist, and they moved on, and then they went right back to doing what they were doing because the slap of the wrist was worth it. And that's in the end, that's kind of the moral of the story, is it's been worth it to cheat in the way that these other teams are cheating. And so it will not stop them, because they'll continue to win. They'll continue to have the better players. And when you have the better players, like a breakdown I did last week, you win your one-on-ones. And when you win your one-on-ones, you win football games. So, no, it won't stop. Now, I do like the idea of a third party, or just any party that's not NCAA, a third party, a fifth party, a seventh party, a 10th party, like any party that's not NCAA party. It's going to be a good party in terms of my perspective, because the NCAA is just terrible. It's been terrible for a really long time, and they haven't been able to enforce anything other than the ridiculous things like what they did with Atkins. And, and so I don't have any faith that they can get together anything. So if somebody outside does it, I think it would be better than them, but it certainly won't be good. There's no good answer other than the fact that these guys are pro athletes. They should be. It should be a pro system, or semi-pro system, or whatever you'd want to call it. And everybody should be getting paid salaries and all of that. It's a minor league system, and that's how it should be treated going forward, and get scrap NCAA football altogether.
Let me get your thought on this. So something I hear a lot, I'm sure you hear it a lot, is, especially from Florida State fans right now, is that like this is all ruining college football. The way that teams are, obviously Miami has not been bashful about their approach to NIL. Ole Miss, I mean, there are other schools as well. And Florida State hasn't. I mean, listen, Florida State, the reason Florida State was so good in 2023, let's all be honest here, is the Battle's End was able to help keep Jordan Travis, Jared Verse, a bunch of those guys would have gone to the NFL if there was no Battle's End, if there was no NIL, and you were able to keep that group together largely because you were able to help do that. Now, a lot of FSU fans feel like, and it's other fans also of other schools, but we hear a lot of FSU fans, because that's the world we live in, who feel like, okay, this is ruining college football. My point is, if you look at college football TV ratings, they're still great. The crowds are still great. You just talked about being at the Big House with 110,000 people there. To me, it's like the teams that are not doing well, that's their complaint, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But as far as, I mean, you're a college football observer. Like, do you feel like this is the end of college football, or do you think that's, I mean, in terms of where we're going, in terms of, like you said, it's kind of semi-pro football?
Yeah, I'm saddened only because it's ruined college football as we knew it,
right?
Which we loved it. Like we at least fell in love with it there. But in terms of like the gameplay, absolutely not. I mean, and the thing that I love about it more than anything is some of the best and brightest coaches and developers are in the college game, and they can be, because it's a viable option financially, for them to do it. And so these guys are getting better coaching, better training. A lot of the best, strength, S&C guys are in the college game, all of these things. So that's what I love about, the way that the game is sort of changing. It's evolving in a way that I don't love, because it's not what I fell in love with, as a kid. So that, if you're looking for it to be that, then yeah, it is being ruined. But in terms of the actual game, the ratings, the health of college football is better than it's ever been, and it will never die. The thing that I worry about is part of what made college football so great was these guys were your guys. We have a quarterback who's worn 2 other jerseys, one of them in our conference. Honestly, it's especially now, if he plays, if he goes 13-0, he's our guy.
I was going to ask you though, do you think there's less grace? Do you think there's less grace because of that though? Like,
if he goes 13-0, he's our guy. But now, when he gets out of here, we will never claim him again. And
right.
And that part of college football I hate. I mean, I used to know guys, the old Rooster. Did Rooster ever start at Florida State?
Housen, just when
Marcus
Lincoln got hurt. Yeah.
Okay. So like, I can't name a current backup, and I can name a backup from 1998.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you knew that roster, and you followed the roster from year to year.
Yes, you knew the roster. You knew who was going to be there. So the loyalty to following these guys, and when they get, especially now, I mean, what's the question you ask everyone when you're or the first thing they say when you're watching a pro game? That's Richard Sherman from Stanford.
Right.
What's the first thing that comes after his name? The college that they went to, and then sometimes it's your height and weight. But like that becomes like a really, really deep identity of the pro game. Even the pro game is where guys went to college.
Right.
Well, 5-10 years from now, man, those Monday Night Football things are going to be wild.
So, dude,
DJ, what's DJ going to say?
Somebody
3 schools.
Somebody said to me somebody said to me the other day, and I can't remember who it was. I'd like to give him credit. I apologize to whoever it was. They said, like in the Senior Bowl or whatever, when they wear like all the schools, they should have to do that when they played at 3 or 4 schools. They should have to have like all the logos of where they've been.
Multiple helmet stickers. So to me, that's like a big issue. I think that's going to change how loyal you can be to even to your alma mater or the school that you knew since you were a kid or you followed. I think the next generation is going to have trouble identifying with their team, because their team is going to be a bunch of guys who've been in and out and been on other teams too. But I think people said that about the pro game when they introduced free agency. Yeah. And Babe Ruth going from the Red Sox to the Yankees, that was, in 1906 or whatever. And, and we still see Babe Ruth as a Yankee. So, right. Maybe it is okay. Maybe it'll be fine.
That's my contention, is that like, if Florida State gets good again next year, these concerns are going to not be as big of a deal. But when you're bad in college football right now, it's like, you don't even have that. You don't even have the, okay, I know these young kids and I'm willing to watch them grow and develop, because honestly, right now, you don't know who of these guys are even going to be here next year. Like, so the idea that you're developing some of these young players, I mean, they could go wherever they want. So it's almost like, if you're doing well, I don't think it matters, but if you're not doing well, I think it is going to affect the interest level.
For fans. That's exactly it.
I'm not sure if there's any other questions that, all right, here from Hogwatcher, D-Rob, can you talk about how they went tackle over and left tight end backside to help create better blocking for the early run game this past game? I don't know if you've done your breakdown yet of watching the all-22s or how much you watched the game. I know you were busy on Saturday, but basically an unbalanced line, some of the things they did to get the running game going, because they ran the ball a whole lot better in this game than they have the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because I hadn't seen a lot of that from Norvell in the past. So I have to look at it. The one thing that I thought was there was more of a mix between counter and inside zone or zone runs than I can remember seeing in recent future or recent past. So I'm interested to kind of dig in on that. There's obviously, I don't want to say, I think I kind of said yesterday or last week that you're almost at the point where you're kind of throwing some things at the wall. Right. And so that it sort of feels like that a little bit, and maybe they found something, we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely a great idea. It's something that, a lot of, I mean, hell, like you said, I was just at the Michigan game and they spend more than half of their game in unbalanced tackle over. They even bring in 6 offensive linemen, and they busted a big run on a 6 offensive lineman power play. So it's a great idea if you're struggling to run the ball and you need to run the ball and you can't go to the pass to loosen up the run. It's like you double down on getting bigger. It's just like, hey, what's better than big? It's like bigger, So it's, hey, we're going to take this guy instead of having the 240-pound guy here. We're going to put another 300-pound guy there and try to run the same play. So yeah, that's sort of all that I have on it, is that I'm going to dig deeper on the relationship between more inside zone runs and he ran some counter early and then kind of got out of it. And
I was going to ask you about the counter. I was going to ask you about the counter stuff real quick. Just and I know you don't necessarily coach offensive line, but you coach schematically all of it. Right. It looks to me like sometimes when like Darius at left tackle, sometimes when he's pulling with a guard and the guard is like slow, and it looks like Darius is like in slow motion. Like Darius wants to go, but he can't go because the guards, like how that timing part of it. I don't know. Like it looked clunky. It looks clunky when they're trying to run it.
Yeah, it's been a problem for sure. And I've never. That's a good. You bring up a good point because I hadn't quite looked at the timing or relationship between the tackle and guard, but I have noticed that because the boxes are loaded and the upfront guys are getting penetration,
right?
It just the pullers can't even get there on a lot of the counter plays.
It did a better. It seemed like it was better this week than it has.
Yeah. I'm saying in the past breakdowns that I did and watching the film was that has been a huge problem. That there's been so much penetration and the box is loaded. So to me, again, the answer is you spread them out and you throw it, or you fake the counter. And this is what he's done in the past. You show counter and you do all your counter looks off of it. And that's where Norvell is like brilliant with all of his looks off of counter, where he's not actually running counter. It's, counter, it's RPO, it's counter to throw screens, it's counter to take shots, drop back deep, play action counter. It's all these other things that make it really tough. Well, you can't get to any of it because you can't do that until the counter is good. Right. If the counter's not good, all the other stuff is no good. So, yeah, I'm that's definitely a part of it though, is the guard, you look at possibly running a different version of counter where it's tackle Y, tackle, instead of, GT, which is the one that I think he likes the most, because your G is not getting to the other side.
Well, if there's, I want to ask one more question. I don't know if there was any other that we need to hit, but my last question for you is, I felt like I think you said last week that you were at the point where you're ready to see maybe if Brock Glenn or a different quarterback could give them something, to give them a spark. I think even though they won the game, a lot of fans are disappointed that still hasn't happened. They're still not real confident in DJ. My thought coming out of that game was the fact that you got a lead, you scored on your second possession, you were up 7-0. You kind of were in control of the game, even though it was 7-3 at halftime, 7-6. Then they took the lead 9-7, but then you scored right back. To me, it felt like I don't know if Mike Norvell did have that in his mind, and we don't know, there's no way to know for sure, that he was willing to give Brock a chance at some point in that game. I feel like the way it played out, it didn't really make sense. What are do you feel like, I mean, again, none of us know, but do you feel like if he didn't do it then, he's just not going to do it? It's DJ ride or die? Or do you think the game circumstances are going to dictate some of that?
Here's what I think would be him having not done it to this point tells me what I'm taking from it is that the other option is way too far from being ready to go. Whether that's Brock or the other young kid, I'm understanding that that guy is not ready because he's so afraid of signaling or hitting the panic button that there was a point where it would have made sense for him to do it and then go back to DJ, or at least try it. And because he didn't try it, to me, that was him signaling, hey, this guy that we have out there now gives us the best chance to win every football game that's on our schedule. And I will only do this at the moment where we are now playing for the future for 2025. But as long as we are playing to make a bowl in 2024, which I think is a really, really important thing, you do not want to be left out of the bowl conversation.
And And the reason why is because of those extra practices mostly.
Exactly. Yes. Those practices, it's a whole new season. It's sometimes it's 4, SC this past year, they got like 6 weeks of an extra season. They had a whole extra season after their season ended. And that was huge for them to catapult them not only in that bowl game, which they beat the Louisville team that Florida State had just played in the ACC championship, but for the offseason, and then obviously now this season when you open up with LSU, those practices and that game became really, really, really vital. So you want to get in the bowl conversation. You want to play a bowl game, because if especially if DJ's not the quarterback, if you got somebody else in your room that's going to be your quarterback going forward, you want to practice with him for 4 extra weeks, 6 extra weeks.
That's a great point.
Those things are crazy, crazy valuable. So it's not just about like winning today's game. It's like, what games can I steal down the road if I can practice with this guy, and I don't throw him out there to drown and ruin him, and obviously now you have to deal with, transfer, now, does the kid transfer because you didn't give him a chance, but you can't signal to your team. I think right now what he's trying to do is signal to his team, the guys that have a potential to come back, especially those juniors that are, potentially looking at the NFL. We cannot signal to them that we've given up on them this year. We can't say, and that to me is what he's doing with the quarterback situation, is looking, we've got more things bleeding than we can patch up.
Right.
So the one thing that I have to create stability with is, hey, who's going to be under center. You don't have to worry about that. That's not part of the conversation. We got to clean up. Hey, do we tackle well? No. Okay, we got to clean that up. Are we communicating well on defense? No, we got to clean that up. But we're the quarterback conversation. We're not gonna create more noise than we have to. And to me, that's what he's trying to signal, is like, hey, we're gonna probably lose these games anyway, the past games. So we're gonna be stable in this place, with this guy. This is the best guy that gives us a chance to win, even when he's not great. So
we'll see how it goes for you, Mike. The fans are restless.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's definitely today's game, and I get it. I understand why they always think that the guy that's sitting there somehow is better than the guy that's out there, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it, But yeah, we'll see how it works out. But that, to me, I think that's what he's doing. I think he's waiting. And again, I hope I'm on record to say, like, I think he should have had at least a package for another guy at some point by now. I do. I think another guy has at least should have taken a snap and see if you can get a spark. But now at this point, like, to me, it's like, you got to let it ride. At this point, you gotta let him go, and you just got to coach him better. You got to scheme him up better. You got to get him in better positions, and you got to figure out a way to run the ball and protect him as much as you can, and hopefully your defense can play as well as they did. Because Cal's a decent team, man. Like, I know it's Cal, and we're in Florida, and we don't know anything about Cal, but I watched Cal live last year, and Cal's a decent program.
I'll tell you what, there were a couple of things that stood out to me, because I have not watched 3 minutes of Cal football before Saturday, but their defense was pretty physical. Who was also physical? Number 10, the receiver, and 13 made some plays. Like, they had their skill guys out in their back, number 1. Like, I was really impressed by their offensive skill, and some of just the physicality. Now, the lines of scrimmage were not great, but their skill guys I thought were really physical. And to your point, that may not have been as, the offense had 200 yards at halftime. They just only had 7 points. Like, that was a pretty good half of football with DJ at quarterback. So maybe there is some hope there.
Yeah, I think Cal's better than one of the teams that beat us probably.
Right.
At least. It might be better than both of them. Cal's a good team, good program. Coach does a great job. So yeah, I let's not discredit, the loss or this win too much. Because Cal's got something. They're not great. We definitely should score more than 14 and all of that. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to, but I do want to, just go on the record and say, like, hey, Cal's, let's not discredit everything that Cal is, because they're good, and that was a good win.
Well, thanks, D-Rob. Appreciate you stopping
Yep.
by, man. And thanks to everybody for watching, and Tom and Ben and everybody else that kind of helps get this thing going. And obviously, Russ Voorhis and his insurance company, give him a shout out. RussVoorhis.com is the website. And we will talk to you next week. We'll see, man. There's a storm coming to Tallahassee possibly later this week. So some of our schedule may be interrupted. But Florida State's playing Saturday at SMU. And hopefully we'll have some more content from D-Rob on the site and educating us a little bit. And we'll get into to next week. And maybe Florida State will surprise some folks as 5-point underdogs at SMU. Thanks, D-Rob. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Shout out to Russ with the insurance. We appreciate you, Russ. And we'll get that breakdown to you guys this week. I'm excited about doing it, of course. And also, just for next week, for next Monday Smash, at 3D Robinson is my Twitter. Just so that if you guys got some questions, you want to shoot some questions in advance, so that when I show up, we don't have to fastball. Go ahead and hit me, shoot me a DM, and go ahead and smash that like button. And I'll see you guys next week on Monday Smash, and we'll get the breakdown to you this week.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you, man.